All right, so what we're going to illustrate here is why in the long run, firms in a perfectly competitive market can only have normal profits. In other words, that zero economic profit. We did illustrate that in the short run, they can have positive economic profit, they can have negative economic profit, but in the long run, they can only have normal profit. So we have to look at the market as a whole to see why this happens. So we know it's the market that establishes the price with the supply and demand in the market, and so that's going to create the price that now every single firm in that industry is going to charge. And so again, now to see what kind of profits the firm is going to have, we have to have our marginal cost function on there, and we have to have our average total cost function on there. So let's say they look like that. So again, we can see that for this particular firm, they're just breaking even. They're having zero economic profit because their average total cost is equivalent to the price that they're charging. Let's say, for example, that price was $1. So again, we see that they would be producing the quantity of output right here where the marginal cost equals marginal revenue. And then so the price that they're charging is $1. And at the same time, their average total cost function intersects right there also. So it's costing them $1. So again, they're having zero economic profit. They're breaking even. Let's say, for example, though, in the industry, there's a new report that comes out that causes demand for this particular good to increase. So again, let's say that we're talking about corn, and the government releases a report stating all these new health benefits that come from consuming corn that we didn't know about before. So we can assume that that's going to change consumer taste and preferences. So there's going to be an increase in demand for corn because of all the new health benefits that we think we're going to get. So what that does is drive up the price, right? This is the new equilibrium price that every farmer is now going to charge for corn. So we have a demand curve up here now. This is our new demand curve, right? So we do the same thing. We now say, and then let's say that that price level was $2 now. So it's driven the price up to $2. We do the same thing. Now we find the point where marginal revenue equals marginal cost, which is right here. So we're going to increase the quantity that we're supplying. Let's say it's 15 now. At the same time, notice what has happened. Our average total cost is no longer equivalent to the price that we're charging. Our average total cost is way down here. The price that we're charging is way up here. So we're now having positive economic profit because our average cost per unit is now lower than the price that we're charging. So corn farmers are loving this, right? In other words, they're making more money than they were expecting to make because of this increase in price of the corn. Well, remember that this is an industry that does not have barriers to entry. Therefore, any firm can come in and start selling this product at any time, and that's exactly what's going to happen. Farmers who grow other crops are going to see the corn farmers that are having the above normal profits, and that's going to induce them to switch and start growing corn also to get some of those above normal profits. So what's going to happen in the long run is the supply of corn farmers is going to increase, and it's going to continue to increase until it has pushed the price back down to its original equilibrium price to where normal profits are now made. So that's why in the short run, firms can have the above normal profits, because in the short run, the supply and the demand in the market will change, which can cause the price to rise. But in the long run, because there's no barriers to entry, the price will get driven back down. The same will happen if a firm is taking losses in the industry. So again, let's say that we start out with the supply and demand for the market, and that gives us the price that every individual firm is now going to charge, like so. And so, of course, we need our marginal cost curve on here. We need our average total cost curve on here. And so the same thing. Let's say this industry starts out in long run equilibrium where they're just having normal economic profit. In other words, the price that they're charging is equivalent to their average total cost per unit. Again, let me just label these graphs correctly. Price and quantity. Now let's say that a health report actually came out that said the opposite. Let's say that the report came out and said that increased corn consumption was actually bad for your health. In other words, it contributed to diabetes and other health problems. So of course, then we would assume that the demand for the corn would actually go the other way. There would be a decrease in demand for corn. And if there's a decrease in demand for corn, then obviously that drives the price down. So initially the market set the price up here. Now the price has been driven down here. And of course, we pulled that over to see this is the new demand curve for the firm down here. So we do the same thing. We find the point where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. So we would be decreasing the quantity that we produce. Let's say it's 9. And in this case, notice how now our cost per unit is much higher. In other words, this is the price that we're charging down here, but this up here is the cost per unit. Right? So now firms are having economic losses. They're having negative economic profit. And so remember we said that in the short run, what they'll do is the firms will examine to see if they can cover their variable costs or not. But we know if the long run outlook is not good, then eventually firms will start leaving the industry, right? In other words, they're going to go and they're going to start growing a crop where they can have positive economic profit. So in this case, the number of suppliers in the industry is going to shift like so, and it'll continue to decrease until we've driven the price back up. As you can see here, we've driven the price back up to its original price where normal profits were being made. So whether the price is rising or falling in the short run tells you whether or not firms are gaining positive or negative economic profit in the short run. But because there's no barriers to entry, the supply of firms will always adjust to push us back to that normal profit margin where firms are just having zero economic profit. So again, the main reason as to why firms in this industry can only have normal profits in the long run is coming down to the fact that there's no barriers to entry. When above normal profits are made, firms are going to enter the industry and drive the price back down. And when negative economic profits are being made, firms are going to leave the industry, which is going to allow the price to come back up.